know the why human trafficking work is needed? To fight for the freedom of modern-day slaves. But love, passion, commitment isn't all you need to be an effective and successful anti-trafficking advocate. Learn the how. I'm Dr. Celia Williamson, Director of the Human Trafficking and Social Justice Institute at the University of Toledo. Welcome to the Emancipation Nation podcast, where I'll provide you with the latest and best methods, policy, and practice discussed by experienced experts in the field so that you can cut through the noise, save time, and be about the work of saving lives. Hello, welcome. This is the Emancipation Nation, and today we're going to be interviewing Dr. Donna Sabella and having a conversation about the things that she does. She is a professor at the Pennsylvania School of Health Sciences. She's a nurse by trade, psychiatric nurse in particular. She also teaches for UMass, for Westchester University. I know at UMass, she's teaching psych nursing courses to students. At Westchester University, she's teaching a victim advocacy course, which sounds really cool. In her spare time, which I don't know how she has any, she's a psych nurse practitioner in the prison there. And so she has lots and lots of experience. And so I'm so excited that she even had time to be on here today to talk to us from a nursing perspective, from a psych perspective about human trafficking advocacy. So welcome, Donna. I'm so glad you're able to join us.
Oh, I'm pleased to be here. Greetings from outside of Philadelphia to everyone, I guess, in the Toledo area. Would that be right?
Yeah. So, across the country and around the world, hopefully.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So how long have you been involved in anti-trafficking work, all totaled?
It started back, and I don't want to date myself, but when I was in graduate school getting my master's in mental health, which was back in the 80s, and I was working in Philadelphia for a organization that had several drop-in centers for people who had a number of issues, mental health issues, addiction, etc. So I guess, and I figured since I'm in graduate school, people will open their doors to a graduate student. Mm-hmm. So I used that for everything it was worth. So since roughly the early 80s.
Okay. You had something to do with the founding of Dawn's Place, which is one of, in the early days, anti-trafficking prostituted women program?
Exactly. I guess through my work as a psych nurse at these drop-in centers where I met with people and, did some counseling and whatnot, I came to realize that a number of the women were being involved in trafficking or being prostituted at the time. That was sort of the word that you used. And I looked around. Philadelphia has a lot of resources for things, but we had nothing for human trafficking. So I went online and found a place in California. And I also found a program in Phoenix, Arizona. And I guess selfishly, I thought, where would I rather go? I wanted to go to Phoenix. And I contacted a program out there. It was called the Dignity Program, which Dignity is an acronym, just some things which I now don't remember. But the woman in charge, Kathleen Mitchell, had been herself a former, this time again, of prostitution. She'd been prostituted and had enough of being arrested multiple times, decided to do something about it, and started going into the jail there. Now, if you know anything about the Phoenix jail with the former sheriff there, I mean, it was sort of a tough crowd. But Kathleen, could walk the walk and talk the talk. Then came out, started this program. At one point in their heyday, they had 3 houses. And I hounded her, and I said, I'm a graduate student. I want to do something to help our women back in Philly. Can I come out and spend some time with you? So at that point, the seeds were planted to get involved. She had a well-run program. She opened everything to me, and I took that knowledge back with me to Philadelphia when I came back home. And through you, it's a long story, but through your conference, I met a number of like-minded people from Philly who were then starting this program called Dawn's Place. And they needed someone who had a mental health background. Certainly nursing, adds to the benefits of all of this. And I said, count me in. So there were about 5 of us that were the co-founders for Dawn's Place, which it's in business today. Unfortunately, Dignity in Phoenix is out of business. They lost a lot of funding. Dawn's Place in Philly, though, is still going. And I was the first program director. And I developed all of the protocols and, all of that thing that goes into developing the program.
What happens at Dawn's Place?
Well, people come in, they're sort of assessed. And again, this model was very much adapted from the Dignity program. So I always give Kathleen Mitchell. And for those of you listening out there, I was encourage you to Google her name. She's really a phenomenal woman, Kathleen Mitchell. But it's very largely based on what she had started, where we get a call, someone needed to come in. So they would be assessed to make sure they were appropriate. We had very few limitations. I mean, someone could not be sordidly psychotic or medically frail. Dignity had a house for medically frail women. We don't. Dawn's Place doesn't. But they'd be interviewed to see if they were appropriate. And if there were no outstanding warrants, we have to get involved in all of that sort of thing. And then they were, welcome to join us. And the program was the first month or so. There was a blackout period where you did things. And we connected the women to various city services in Philly for medical services, mental health services, addiction, schooling, training. After a while, they were encouraged to go out and, do a little part-time work or something. And they also did programs in the house where, you had someone come in to do some counseling or helping them with meals or helping them, with homework in school. And it's a residential program. Each 9 bedrooms in the one house. Each woman had her own bedroom, which was very nice area of Germantown. And it's a safe house. So that's, and people would stay for about a year. Now, obviously, we would expect people to come and go. They were welcome back if they left, because we realized that was part of the whole process. Recently, I haven't been involved with them directly for the last couple of years because I was living in Massachusetts, but recently there was a second house next door. And we bought the first house, which is beautiful, a 3-story stone house, 9 bedrooms, from a group of nuns who sold it to us for $1.
Oh, wow.
And they were living next door because they had several houses. So the order of nuns, actually, when they got ready to leave, sold the second house. And these are lovely homes. We were very fortunate. We had a major law firm, Ballard Spahr, in Philly, because there's a lot of legal work involved in this. They worked pro bono for us. We had people who, we needed to, certain things like fire doors. A lot of work goes into this before you get anything off the ground, before you even think of, giving someone a glass of water in the house. We had to make sure the building was up to code. Every little thing they came through, we had to get licenses, permits. We had to talk to people in the neighborhood to, let them know that this wasn't going to be an in and out thing and people, lining up at all hours of the morning and whatnot. But we had a lot of help, a lot of volunteers, and eventually it came, it was just really a very lovely place, very nice. And eventually, as I say, it was a lot easier with the second house because we'd been through the first process, and knew what to do.
How did you get the funding, or did you get funding, and where did you get it in the early days?
We got it's a group of a couple lawyers, myself, who's mental health and nursing, and a couple of Catholic nuns who were phenomenal. Just incredible. They knew how to shake the Catholic money trees from people. Yes. They were really good in getting donated. Matter of fact, some of them, they wore street clothes, but sometimes when they go out to do a little soliciting for financial stuff, they dress up a little more in the religious vein.
Yes, I love the nuns. I would tell people that is, if you're going to be an advocate, you've got to make really good friends with the sisters, because they've done incredible work here with us in Ohio. Because one thing is they're good for safety measures, because if you're doing any programming and they're wearing their religious outfit, and coming into your house and doing anything, it's sort of like a designated safe zone. Like people just do not mess around with the nuns. And then we would ask them to go out and raise this certain amount of money because we're trying to design whatever. And they will go out and raise the money.
Yeah, they're phenomenal. And they were active. We had in the Philadelphia area, a Connolly Foundation, which gave a lot of money and computers and stuff to. So, they knew who the big players were. But we also got small amounts of money. Matter of fact, a funny story, in one of the local newspapers, they did a story on Dawn's Place, except the title of the article, front page of this, little tabloid newspaper, talked about getting hookers off the street. Well, when we saw the title, we were livid. On the front page was a picture of the 2 nuns, Sister Teresita and Sister Kathleen, in the house, but they were dressed in street clothes. Well, people saw that and read the article. They thought those women were prostitutes, the 2 nuns. And they got a few checks for like $10 from people who said, God bless you, hope you recover. They were just so cool, these women, Sister Kathleen and Sister Teresita. But they knew where to get the money. But we also were involved with the Catholic social services or Catholic charities in Philly, which again is similar to what was financing things in Dignity. Catholic charities gave a lot of money to Dignity in Phoenix in its day. So, we had donations. We were getting some funding. We hired someone to help us with grants. A lot of the work was pro bono. And then at a certain point where the women in the house were able to go out and do something. Part of the money they earned, a small portion of it would go back to maintaining the house.
I think that's amazing. So something probably needs to be erected to those two poor nuns who had to be portrayed in the community as women in prostitution. They had to really sacrifice. But with our sisters, it's sisters all over the U.S. When they walk up to you and say, would you write a check for the cause? I mean, who's going to say no? That's exactly. You're too afraid you're going to lose points, in heaven. So I'm going to write that check.
Yeah, right. Even if you're not Catholic, right?
Yeah, even though they take a vow of poverty, they can raise some money for sure.
Yeah, and it's too bad we're not being able to. Otherwise, I could send you a picture of the front page of that newspaper article, which I have framed and whatnot. But yeah, and it's one of the things that the Pope has given his blessing to this. So, across, and when I was living in Massachusetts and doing work there, again, a lot of it was funded and supported by the Sisters of St. Joseph. So there's many different orders. For those who are Catholic, there's many different orders of sisters, but they all get together to support this.
What I understand, this is a worldwide agreement across the globe. And it's one of the first things that all the Sisters United have ever agreed on, uniformly. But I think it's, around the world agreement that sisters are going to take a hands-on approach and go all out in terms of fighting human trafficking. So, having the sisters, that's a major feather in your cap.
Well, when we think of Sister Teresa in India, all the good work she did and stuff. So, so a lot of this was supported by them. They brought in a lot of money. And then, of course, those of us who didn't have the cross and the garb to wear, we also, went out and tried to get a little money as well. So, and the grants helped a little bit. But as I say, unfortunately, with Dignity in Phoenix, 3 beautiful houses, et cetera, lasted for a while, and it's no longer in existence. And one year I went back to visit. I didn't realize that they were sort of out of business. And Kathleen Mitchell had gone back to where she was originally from. I think it was Minnesota. So I drove up to the house where I had been and knocked at the door, and they thought I was crazy. I said, well, the women were living here. We're just, no, it's a family now, and kind of, I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I was embarrassed, but I think they thought I was scoping the place out to rob it or something. But,
Wow. So that's how Dawn's Place got founded. But then you've gone on with your master's and then your PhD, and now you're doing a lot of good scholarly work in trafficking and mental health. And talk a little bit about what some of your research has been.
The research looked at, I'm interested in mental health, but I'm also interested in narrative and how we construct our reality by the stories and whatnot we tell. And those of us in social work or mental health, people come and they tell their stories, and that's what we go by. So what I was interested in was hearing the lived experience of being trafficked or being involved. Again, if the woman thought she was involved in prostitution, we went with her terminology. Follow that. So I spent time, well, I certainly had access to the women when I did research in Phoenix and also here in Philadelphia, looking at what that was like for each individual. And it was really, first of all, I love what I did. And I think having spent time collecting data for our program back in Philly, I got to know some of the women who trusted me. So they were willing to be honest and share their stories with me. How people would get a rush. I mean, there was good to this and there was bad to this. And looking at this, and then working with some people here in the Philadelphia prison system, where I was involved. Some of the women were court ordered into treatment and for trauma, et cetera. But I spent time with them. I was part of the Project Dawn Court. We have a diversion court here in Philadelphia. We have a number of them. This particular diversion court looks at women who have been arrested for solicitation, obstructing traffic, or, from the old word prostitution. They're sent to prison. They agree to meet certain criteria. They either get a lighter sentence or they're not sent to prison. If they're sent to prison, then I would meet them there and do some counseling with them. The thing I'm working on next, I just came back to the Philadelphia area from being in Massachusetts for several years, where I was the endowed professor of social justice. And we're working with some of the authors. We have a book coming out, an international handbook. And I didn't want to go there with any of the authors while the book was in process, because I didn't want any authors getting mad at me and saying, I'm not writing for you anymore. But we're just about finished. And Villanova University has a division in their law school that looks at sex trafficking and whatnot. So my thing on my plate here that I'm going to approach them now that I'm done with the authors is to see if we could start a clinic where the women could come and get some therapy right on the grounds of Villanova, because oftentimes they have to come and, there's the court there, and the lawyers that work at Villanova are involved in helping the women, fight some of the charges.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to meet with them anyway. And my thinking is, Villanova is not that far from me. And Villanova does. Again, it's a Catholic university who's very much interested in human trafficking. So I'm putting together a little proposal now to see if, particularly two of the lawyers that are at Villanova who work in this area, who are well known, I'm not going to mention their names because they don't know what's coming yet, but kind of make it a nice surprise. See if they would be interested in, starting something there that we kill two birds with one stone, get some legal advice, but also get some counseling and therapy.
Yeah, I think our lives often run parallel because we're doing something similar at the University of Toledo, trying to start a human trafficking clinic and involve the law school and involve counseling and psychology and nursing and those types of things. Yeah, so we're often on the same wavelength, I think.
But, I think that's probably why we've stayed in touch with each other for so many years, since we're friends too. I think there's a need for that. I mean, there's certainly the law is involved very early on. And so why should a woman have to, even if there's a diversion court, go to prison? And I know Pennsylvania, what we're trying to do for nurse practitioners is not to have a collaborating physician involved. So that, I prescribe, but I can also prescribe and do counsel. So, nurse practitioners, we prescribe. And oftentimes there's no pill for trafficking per se, but people are depressed or they might have a number of other mental health issues either before or afterwards and, could use a little bit of medication. So that's an added plus too, besides some counseling.
How does someone who, people stereotype of a nurse as, a nice, healthy, wonderful, clean-cut nurse, and they work in hospitals and they help you with things. But nurses, you don't picture them, or the stereotype of a nurse is not going into jails or going on the street or going into homes full of women who have been traumatized. I mean, how does a nurse get to dig in and do that kind of work if they're passionate about that kind of area?
I think, I see myself in many ways. I'm kind of a social worker at a nurse's salary in many ways. And you're exactly right. Because when people say you're a nurse, and sometimes they don't tell people, and especially don't tell them I'm a mental health nurse, because I don't want to hear their problems on the plane where we're 6 hours sitting next to each other. And it's happened sometimes. I think, and again, when people hear I'm a nurse, what hospital do you work in? I've never worked in a hospital. I can't stand them. But if someone wants to do this, they really have to probably start as a nurse, learn something about, certainly some medical issues wouldn't be hard or wouldn't be a bad thing to do because people are out and about and you have medical issues going on with a lot of this. I think it's the best way. And to realize that they're probably not going to work full time in this area. It's difficult to sustain someone full time unless they're head of a major organization or something. But to go through, I would, if they want to do this, they could certainly do it in a number of areas of nursing. Women's health. If they went on to get a master's degree in women's health as a nurse, that would be an area. But then, of course, you wouldn't be dealing with male victims. Mental health, to me, I've always been a mental health nurse. We all have mental health. We all can have mental illness. So this broadens the whole spectrum for me. I became aware of this, as I say, as a mental health nurse for the city of Philadelphia. When some of the women I was, counseling and treating for depression or this, that, or the other, just started coming in with a black eye and, dig a little deeper and you find out that she's got a pimp who's beating her up. So that's kind of got my area of interest. I think if people have an interest in human trafficking and social justice and, enjoy what they do, nursing, because we have a lot of autonomy in nursing, even though, many of nurses do work in the hospital. Outside in the community, there's public health, there's community nursing, there's, mental health. There's a lot of areas where we can step outside of a building per se, or even an organization and get involved and meet people where they are. So I think first you need the credentials, though, because people are going to look at that and you need the experience, the education. I just decided at that point, I thought, well, we need to get something back here for Philadelphia and on my own. Mm-hmm. I pay for my trip to Phoenix. I pay because I'm headstrong. I knew what I wanted to do. I thought I knew what needed to be done. And it gave me great satisfaction. So
you took the reins and said, I'm going to learn about this and I'm going to do something about this.
And you were very helpful. Let me add this. I want everyone to know because I was pulling together articles to do some reading because I like to educate myself. And I found a couple of articles by someone named Celia. And I couldn't get them. So I emailed you directly. You probably don't remember this, but I said, explain a little who I was. Could I have a copy? And my gosh, the next day I had copies of what I'd asked for, and you told me about the conference. So that's what got it started. You were right there. I came to the conference, got to meet you, and got to meet the rest of the group from Philly who happened to be there. And that's how we started with Dawn's Place.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I just remember I try to live by the motto, email everybody back, because you never know, somebody's going to hit the lotto and they're going to fund like the whole,
Yes.
or you never know what somebody's going to do with the information, if they're going to go and they're going to grow something. And I think that's why, right, we've known each other for years. People in this business, we hope, openly share information, help as much as possible, because it's supposed to be about the mission.
Exactly.
Yeah, before careers and things like that. So what would you recommend for somebody who's listening and they're interested in nursing and healthcare? What would you recommend? What kind of degree do they have to get? Explain. There's 2 years and 4 years, and I don't even know what they are.
In nursing, there's undergraduate. There's 3 ways to come in to be a nurse. There's a diploma school, which those are coming down in numbers. They're not. They used to be common years and years ago. Diploma schools usually were 3 years. You don't get any college credit. The ones that are remaining, it's still the diploma school, and they give you a couple of college courses. Personally, I would advise against that, because why would you go 3 years with partial college credit when you could go 2 years to a associate degree program and come out with an associate's degree, which is all college courses. You take your exam by the state, you pass that, and you get your license to practice nursing. Now, again, can some people in a rural area, do something with an associate degree? Yes. Nurses can be helpful at that level. But we're usually people nowadays, they want to see more. So the next step after you get an associate's degree would be to go and get a bachelor's degree, unless you do that first. A bachelor's degree is 4 years, usually in a full-time college, university. 4 years, you come out with a BSN. You take the same state exam as the associate or the diploma school student. Graduate, right? So the exam is the same, but you're going to earn more money with a bachelor's. You're going to have more street cred, and then if you want to go to graduate school, if you have a bachelor's already, that's the next step.
And so, what do you get at the graduate level?
You could get a master's degree in. Well, they used to give them like in mental health. Now it's a psych NP. But again, it depends on what you want to do in a clinical area. If you want to work solely with women who have been trafficked, you can get in women's health, or depending on where you live and what they have. They've got a number of programs at the university there, Toledo. But I would recommend a graduate degree in something, and depending on what you want to do. If you want to run an organization, you can get a master's degree in administration, perhaps. If you want to, I wanted to do mental health with people. So I went and got my master's in mental health, and then went to Penn and got my postmaster's certificate as a psych nurse practitioner. So, people can do it all at once, or you can do a little bit at a time. But again, nothing against diploma schools, but as it was explained to me, why would you spend 3 years and come out with a diploma when you can do 2 and come out with a college degree at the associate degree level? So that's what I recommend for people who want to start a little bit at a time, because it can be expensive. And if you come out as a nurse, you're a licensed nurse, if you work somewhere, they will often pay for you to go back to school to get your bachelor's.
Oh, wow.
So, you might want to keep that in mind. If money's a little tight, you could be working as an associate degree nurse, a registered nurse, working somewhere where they would give you some money toward completing your bachelor's degree.
What in the world, people think, would take you back to school to get the PhD? Like why go through that pain? What's the reason for the PhD in nursing?
And mine isn't in nursing, actually. I mean, I had several degrees, 3 of them actually in nursing, and I thought enough. And my first degree is in Portuguese. So my first master's, I have 2. My first master's is in English as a second language. So you don't have to get your PhD. As I say, mine is in actually linguistics and narrative, how we use language and stories, to me, which was a blend of sort of mental health and language, which I loved, and how we construct, our reality. So, and I loved it. It was a joy. I had good teachers. I had good people on my committee. I love the whole experience. So, it doesn't have to be nursing. As long as you have the master's in it. If you wanted to go on and get a master's in social work or a PhD or another area where, you would meet the criteria, it doesn't have to be in nursing.
And you've actually blended all these things together because you're pretty global. I mean, you've gone to various countries and things, haven't you?
Right. Yes. I'm a Gemini, so I think that's probably, one hand I've got this, the other the twins. Yeah.
And so you mentioned there's the International Handbook of Human Trafficking coming out soon. Do you know when that's going to come out?
It's supposedly October. We're finishing up with the proofs now. And I hope somebody who's Celia got her stuff back in, right? Because they wanted it right away. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so within the next week or two, someone was out of the country. So I said, what are you going to do? We'll have to wait till they get back to take care of this. But we're still in August. So once we get it done, we're hoping October, probably the end of October.
And so the International Handbook of Human Trafficking, what can I expect to see in there if I'm somebody who might want to pick it up?
We wanted it to be interdisciplinary. So we've got 4 sections for 4 different disciplines. One is healthcare, one is social work, one is criminal justice, and one, I believe, is policy. So, there's something in there for everyone, a variety of things, interdisciplinary. And it's from a practical approach. These are people who practice in these areas, who set policy, who run clinics, who do social work with folks. So it's really people hands-on who are also, for the most part, academic. Not everyone's an academia, but those who aren't teach sometimes, but they also run programs. Mm-hmm. So 7 chapters in each 2 sections. Health, criminal justice, 7 chapters, and then the other 2 selections, social work and policy, 7 chapters.
And so who's it most appropriate for? Is it most appropriate for academics or is it most appropriate for practitioners?
I think, the book, we designed it, and the focus would be a handbook for actually anyone at any level, I think, because there's enough there to keep people interested and challenged. But it's also a book that we wanted to use in the classroom for upper-level undergraduate students and also for graduate students taking course. While I was at Drexel and then at UMass, I developed human trafficking courses and a certificate, actually, at Drexel. Mm-hmm. So we had to pull things together. You had to buy a number of books. This, we were hoping it can also be used as a textbook in a classroom setting. And again, because the approach to helping people is interdisciplinary, this book had to be interdisciplinary.
Okay. And is that human trafficking certificate still happening at Drexel University?
No, because I left Drexel. And when I left, there was nobody there to teach it. It was a 3-course. So if you know anyone out there at the university would like a certificate offering 3 courses, let me know. I'll be happy to set something up again. But when I left, unfortunately, it had to come with me because no one else could teach it.
Yes,
so, and where I left too did not want me still teaching at Drexel. Yeah.
That sounds like a good idea. We need to consider that. Is that a nursing focused certificate program?
No, I wouldn't. I said to them, because I'm not all nursing, and I don't like things that are sort of myopic. I said it has to be open to any human trafficking course I've ever taught at other places had to be open to everybody from whatever the discipline was. So, and it was all online too. I also did some undergraduate online, and we're open to, anybody from any discipline walk, whether they were a student or not. They had the money, they could take the course.
And so you don't have a human trafficking online course going on currently, correct?
No. Mm-mm.
We'll have to work together on that. So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. What do you think that is fantastic about what you do now in terms of the anti-trafficking work that you do, and what is absolutely frustrating and you wish you didn't have to do? Or
I think one of the things that's frustrating, let me start with that, is that sometimes the public's misperception, and I don't think it's ill-intended, but I think, there's that, the pretty woman plays on TV frequently. And I think there's still that, one magazine for baby, a PDF, had a stroller on the front of it with the title Pimp My Stroller. Well, don't you think they heard from me about pimping a stroller? I just, who the hell is this woman? What's her problem? I think there's still some of the public misperception. I also think that we don't have enough programs or resources or funding to help people do what they need to do, especially for kids and for men. So that can be quite frustrating at times. I also think, too, in a number of states, Holly Atkinson and some of her colleagues wrote a very good article, which is in the Journal of Human Trafficking, about how many states, those of us who have to have licenses to, renewed every couple of years, have to take courses and certain training in certain things And a number of states are now requiring that healthcare professionals at least are taking some training online in human trafficking. Not enough states that were doing that. I did a survey and a lot of them weren't. Although in Pennsylvania, we have to take, because of Jerry Sandusky, child abuse. But human trafficking can be child abuse. So that's frustrating too. Many schools, they're concerned with getting students through the curriculum. All right, so there's no formal training in the schools either for some of this. I mean, I met resistance. One Ivy League school where I work, I also teach it for free. You pay me a salary to teach so many courses. Let me just throw this in for free for you on human trafficking. And they said no.
Wow.
So that's frustrating. The beauty of this is, and again, we don't rescue people. That's ridiculous. I don't rescue anybody. But it's just being able to help people. I mean, to me, that's the essence of nursing, to help people improve whatever is important to them, to realize maybe where they could be and to help them get there, and working with them with that. And just to see the transition sometimes. I know in the Dignity program, they would take a picture of the women when they came in, and then when they graduated, they had pictures. So they had the before and after, which we got to keep. Amazing. And just knowing that you've worked with someone to lend a helping hand. They're doing the hard work, but we're there, a part of it. And it was, I enjoyed very much. So
the transformation. And so what's your aversion to this idea of rescue?
I think we don't. I know, and again, this is my bias, but in Philly, we worked with a group who felt that they were doing the Lord's work and that the Lord was going to save them. And I said, well, but if I had a brain, I'd say, well, how come the Lord let me get here in the first place? You're taking away people's agency.
Yeah.
I think we can help them out, but I don't rescue anybody. I mean, I don't ride in on a white horse and kind of say, here, I'm going to take care of you and I'm going to save you. I think rescue in the sense of helping people get out, maybe, but I think that's too strong a word. And to me, words are very important with my background. I can support you. I can help you. I can probably another bunch of verbs, but rescue, believe me, with what some of these victims go through, they're a hell of a lot stronger than I am. So who am I to think I can come in and save them? I mean, I last all of 10 minutes and wet myself and come home crying, and they have a lot of strength.
I think rescue has, all the power lies with the rescuer when you use the word rescue.
Yes.
You're rescuing somebody weak. You're rescuing somebody, that's so challenged that they need somebody to come in and save them. And that mentality, I'm not a fan of myself, because it recognizes nothing about this person's power and their ability to survive all of these things in their past. That's pretty empowering. That's pretty strong. So
and I didn't care for this group's kind of, they're going to rescue and God's going to take care. Again, I'm nothing against having faith. That's important, and for people to have, but rescuing them it takes away their whole sense of agency, and it shifts the power dynamic. It still keeps them the victim, or eventually the survivor. It still keeps them beholden to somebody else.
Right.
What am I, a pimp now? A pimp that's smiling? I'm not going to hurt you. I mean, it's somewhat similar in some ways, I think.
I think you have to evaluate your reasons for being in this anti-trafficking work if you're really interested in rushing in and rescuing. Is that more about you, or is that more about the mission?
Yeah, exactly. Now, as I say, I give people, I've seen it. I lived with the women in Dignity for a while. I went down there to do research and I was down there 3 or 4 times, spending as much time as I wanted in the house with them. They even offered to let me move in, but then I would have been taking a bed away from somebody. So I stayed at a hotel down the street. But as soon as I got up, I was there all day and all night. It's just some of the beauty and the strength, and as soon as you kind of tell someone that they can't do, they need to be rescued because they can't do it themselves, I don't believe in that. So,
yeah.
Now, if you're sitting in a car and it's on fire, I'll rescue you. Or if the roof's going to fall down and you can't get out, I'll rescue you. I'll come and pull the roof up and get you out. But that's a totally different thing. So,
yeah. So, is there any advice that you would give somebody who wants to be involved as an advocate, or maybe who's already a nurse but doesn't know how can they transition into doing anti-trafficking work?
I think there are, go online. There's a number of articles. I know I've got an article, The Role of Nurses in Combating Human Trafficking. A number of other nurses have some articles, do some reading. Look to see where you are. If there's a task force or there's a community group that you can become involved with, what your skill set is, what you maybe bring to the table. Even again, you don't have to be the level of a practitioner or not. Any nurse can take blood pressures and do some health information and services and provide people with some resources perhaps. So I think it depends on what area you feel you would fit in best. And if you're not sure, try to find some places where people do meet, or the National Human Trafficking Centers, hotline, see what's going on in your area. Maybe if you have any access to, particularly if there's shelters in the area, or you're working with kids, people living in different places. Covenant House is a good place to reach out to. Maybe your local church, synagogue, mosque. Be creative. Go online and look for places and ask if, you could just help with something, even if it's filing paperwork at a place that might be near your house. That gets your foot in the door.
I love all of those ideas, because I think if you come to the table with something to offer, then people are likely to take you up on it. If you say,
right.
Hey, I can contribute this, and maybe you're not going to be the leader of something,
right.
the founder of something. I consider myself a pretty good damn follower. If somebody is a great leader, I love to follow. So I can do my little part that you've assigned me to do, or I can come to the table and say, hey, I can contribute this little part, and I'm happy to do that. And if something doesn't exist, I'll also happy to create it. But if it exists, I don't need to create my own little sandbox. I can just ask if I can play in your sandbox.
Exactly. And I think, too, you made me think of when Dominique out in Arizona and Phoenix, when they would do the outreach a couple times a year. I mean, who was driving the women to the drop-in center, to the church where this was being held, so they could be but people who worked for the Salvation Army were driving people in their van. Now, you might say, okay, they're not the head of it, but how else would people get there if we didn't have the van drivers? Very, very important. Or the people, to go around and make sure people were organized correctly and were going to the right place. Anything that can be done to help is worthwhile. And you might not even know yet what your skills are. Just go anyway.
That's right.
See, because you can say, all right, here's what they need. And I think if I took a course, or I think if I, sharpened or got my driver's license and my car cleaned out, I could take people to meetings or appointments. So you might go with no idea what's needed. But then while you're at these meetings or connecting with other people, it might occur to you. Keep your mind open.
That's right. I think that's wonderful. Any last parting words, Donna, that you'd like to say to people?
No, I think, again, it's not about each of us. It's what we can offer, and to hold the hand of the person until he or she gets there to where they need to be. But be persistent. Don't give up. I mean, I sort of, in my own experience, I saw a need. Nurses are very trusted. I thought, so I'm going to use that to the hilt. I'm going to, Kathleen Mitchell, I thought she'd have me arrested for harassing her. I was emailing her constantly. I never met the woman until I actually got to the house in Phoenix. But because I was a student, she said, yes, no contract, nothing. I was a student at Winery, nothing. I kept it very nicely. And I said, if I'm bothering you, tell me, Kathleen. Nope. She knew that I meant it then. This was something I kept at it very nicely. So, don't be afraid to go for the golden ring if you can find it as well, or if that's not your style, take a little bit at a time. So
that's right. I wholeheartedly agree. And thank you so much, Donna. And that's why you've been able to open programs, go in jails. I mean, you are now, dare I say, a big damn deal. People know you around the globe.
No.
And
no.
You wouldn't say that, but you're pretty well known around the planet. And yet
it's
you
the
take
company
your
I
time.
keep. It's the company I keep.
Well, I think, you take your time to still go in the jail and still do the on the ground work. And I think that's really speaks to your character. And I think, as well as doing an international handbook and all these publications and all the highbrow things that people need you to do, you still take your time and go in the jail and help people one-on-one. And I think that's amazing. And that is what really speaks to the mission of what we're trying to do when we talk about anti-trafficking work.
Yeah, that's, I do go into the jail where I actually work too, but I go in and don't get paid. And we do classes, because we have both men and women in the jail, the co-ed jail, on human trafficking. And how to, no one's going to raise their hand. We don't ask. But I know surely some of these people they're coming just to get off the block and out of their cell. I don't care. Because,
Mm-hmm.
hey, that's fine with me. But, who knows where somebody might be helping because say, yeah, I don't have to do this anymore, blah, blah, blah. So, and both for the men too. Some of the men are trafficked, I'm sure. And certainly in prison, we have this happening. So I enjoy, I can work from the bottom to the top. I like running the whole range.
That's what I love. So thank you so much, Donna. I appreciate your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, you can certainly get a hold of me. Use my email. Yeah, can I give that?
Yeah, please share that.
Okay. It's D, and then my last name's Sabella, DSABELLA at umass.edu. Or if you just look at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, I'm listed there. Sabella at umass.edu. I'd be happy to talk to anybody with any questions that I can help with. So thank you all and take care.
Dr. Donna Sabella. She's a Renaissance woman. Fearless. She was concerned about this issue so much that she did street outreach. She went in jails and worked with women. On her own dime, she traveled across country to learn more about the issue and what she could do. She's a nurse in the truest sense of the word, meaning she's not only interested in healing the body, but in healing the heart, healing the mind, and healing the soul of not only victims, but of society and the way that they treat and respond to victims. Not all nurses take blood pressure. Some nurses take on issues, and they're winning. A great advocate knows where to find opportunity. And when they can't find opportunity, they get on a plane and they go from Philly to Arizona to find it and bring it back. Sometimes they're on a plane and they meet lawyers and they meet nuns and they put their heads together and they come up with programs and houses for women who need to survive a horrible and traumatic experience. Great advocates go where they need to go, and they be who they need to be, and they ask for the things they need to serve their mission and help other people. If you like this episode of Emancipation Nation, please subscribe, and I'll send you the weekly podcast. Until then, the fight continues.